Do you recommend the manager of safety's office to start?
No, it's because it's internal. Let's start with the chief.
Okay.
Okay, let him decide. And see if
Oh,
so that way it'll probably move up to them. So that way the chief is the one carrying the water for it. You may delegate it back down to myself or Alice, but it should be part of the safety policy that we have to follow. Who gets access, and who doesn't. If you pick and choose, I think that as a government entity, you're going to have some bias concerns and legal aspects of issue.
We discussed that yesterday on that legislative meeting. And one of the filters was members in good standing in the Colorado Press Association.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because that would semi-ensure that they're accredited media.
I could possibly do that discussion.
Yeah.
I don't know what their parameters are.
Back in the olden days, the Press Association used to control. Control.
You know, I'm sorry, you have to pass on to who?
Oh, we got it. We did.
Okay.
Okay, and then also, can you, if you don't mind, pass the radio to her? And I think we're good. So, looks like this is everyone that will be attending. So we'll go ahead and get started. So my name is Deborah Brady. I am a Motorola instructor. I think I met you before. Yeah. So I'm here to teach you about the new radios. We're going to be going over all the features and functionalities. I cannot stress enough, if you have questions, please ask. Even if you have questions that does not pertain to the radio, go and ask the question anyway. That's why I have two helpers here to help me for those kinds of questions. And because we want to make sure that you feel comfortable before you leave. Okay. Feel free to play around on the radios. You're not going to hurt anything. And we'll see what happens. Now, in terms of the training materials, if you will, you'll just use those in class. Still have classes tomorrow. So, and then at the end of this, the training materials will be available. And then Todd has them posted for you, where you can get top copies.
Bulletin board's got all this posted, front page.
Thank you.
Okay. And so what the user's guide is in front of you is the same information that I'm showing up here. And so I'll go through the slides, and it should match what you're seeing in your books. Okay. There is also a condensed version of that. That's the little sheet right there. From what I was told, and I guess this is still the plan, that will be distributed with the radios as a cheat sheet.
It was distributed with all the radios when they were given out. Plus, again, that's on the bulletin board. If anybody needs one, they can open it up and look at it real quick.
Yeah. Okay, so my goal is to teach you about the Apex 6000. The fire department has Apex 6000 XE, and so that is the radio in front of you. It has a lot of features, so you're going to be learning about all the zones and talk groups, the radio controls. We'll be talking about emergency because it is going to perform a little bit different than what you're currently used to. There are tones that you're going to hear on the system. We want to make sure you're familiar with those. And then we'll have a little bit of a discussion about the difference between digital and analog, just so your expectations are that it's going to sound different when you cut over. And then we'll get into the failure modes and then some safety recommendations. And then also Todd has something he's going to be telling you about the mobile radios and repeaters. And so going to get a lot of information in a short period of time, but so far it's been okay. All right? So basically, you're moving to a P25 system, and the advantage of moving to a P25 system is that you have advanced features. You're going to have better interoperability, and it's going to bring the majority of the Denver users into one system. And then, of course, you're going to have better coverage, and you should have clear communications. You're currently scheduled to cut over in March, mid-March, and I'll let you tell them all the little fine details about that. Do you know what Steve said?
March 18th, we cut over at 4 a.m. We will have 2 linemen in every fire station that is on the ops calendar for that day. And we will be replacing all the portable chargers and all the rigs, reprogramming the mobile radio. And we hope to do that in about 4 to 5 hours. And we should be all online on P25 when the switchover happens at 4 a.m.
You said 2 linemen in every fire?
You want every chief's house.
2 linemen, so happening. Every chief's house?
Well, they're not going to do it at chief's houses. We want to do 17, for instance, because they've got big bays. We can clear a bay out. We're just going to do houses big enough to take it from. Okay.
Okay. We'll let him get signed in. And then
And we want to use the radios that are in class. The ones that I've given you and you are slightly programmed differently. We've made a few changes based on some requests of mainly Chad Burdor with keypad locks and that sort of thing. So we'll show it to you how it will be.
Okay, and then also down there is a user's guide that you can use. We're asking that you use that in class, and then everything is on the bulletin board for you. All right, and my name is Deborah. Hi. Okay, so one of the things that you're going to notice about the radio is, you know, a lot of people refer to this at the front, but there are microphones and speakers built into both sides of the radio, so it really does not matter which side you communicate on. Things you want to make sure of before you begin to use the radio: of course, make sure your battery's charged. Make sure if you're using a shoulder mic that it's attached firmly and your antennas are attached. And then you want to understand, or at least know, the basic programming of the zones and the talk groups. And we will be having a discussion in a few minutes about the zones and talk groups so that you're kind of familiar with those. And then also kind of make sure you feel comfortable with the basic controls on the radio. Now, in terms of removing the battery, and feel free to practice along if you have not tried this. To remove the battery on this radio, there are latches on each side at the bottom. You hold them in and then you pull. Sometimes the brand new batteries are very difficult to get off. So the one thing, yeah, that's better. Okay, now holding it in, yeah. Okay, and then when you're reattaching it, don't force anything, but you want to make sure that you hear clicks, and that's how you can ensure that the battery is on securely. Notice on the side of the radio here, there's these gold leads here. So what comes with your radios is an accessory connector, and that should be put on the radio if you are not using a shoulder mic. You have these gold leads under here, and we want to protect those because this is where they hook the radio up to the computer to program it. If these are scratched or dirty, then there's a problem if your radio could be a potential problem if your radio needs to be reprogrammed. So you always want to leave that connector on, but in order to use a shoulder mic, you have to remove it. So when you remove it, put it away, don't throw it away. That way, if your radio is used in the future without a mic, you can put it back on, and it just screws right on here. Okay, in terms of the batteries and best practices, of course you want to make sure they're fully charged. When you're charging your batteries, it is recommended that you turn the radio off because you can actually charge the batteries with it attached to the radio, or you can remove the battery and only insert the battery into the charger. Now, in terms of that turning the radio off, that is not an absolute. The only thing about it is when you're charging with the battery attached to the radio, you're going to get a faster charge if you have the radio off. But if you need to leave the radio on while it's in the charger, then that's fine. It's recommended that you discharge the battery as much as possible before you recharge it. But again, especially using the Motorola chargers, I know for sure that that is something that is flexible. In terms of safety, you don't want to discard the batteries in fire. You don't want to replace any of the hazardous atmosphere indications. You don't want to try to puncture it or crush it. And if it gets wet, you don't want to try to dry it with a hair dryer or a microwave. And I always stress that because obviously someone did it or we would not have it in our training materials. And then also if you have conductive materials such as jewelry or chains, do not allow those to touch the exposed battery terminals. Now, on this page, and it's page 6 in the book, is talking about the lights that are on the charger. But what's happening with fire is that you are using primarily your the other chargers, the chargers that you currently have. So you're not necessarily going to be using all of the time, other than the desks, I guess in the offices or desktops, where you'd be using the Motorola chargers. So this really only pertains to the Motorola chargers. And just some key points that I want to point out. Each of the chargers has lights on them. And when you are charging using the Motorola charger, if you see steady green, of course, means it's fully charged. Red means it's charging. That's pretty intuitive. But if you see a flashing red light, that is an indication that the battery is not recognizing the charger. So the example of that is you have the gold leads here on the battery. When you insert it into the charger, these gold leads flush up against the gold leads inside of the charger. And so if you have dirt buildup or paper, something blocking it, you're going to see a flashing red light, which is an indication that it's blocked. All right? Then there is the potential of a steady yellow light. The steady yellow light means that the charger is getting ready to do the reconditioning. And what that means to you is that the charger will drain the battery all the way down, and then it will recondition or rebuild the battery. That process takes approximately 8 hours. So the caution, and when we're training on our Motorola chargers, we caution people about that, because what will happen is if someone's not familiar with that, they will come back, let's say, in a couple hours expecting to have a fully charged battery, and then the battery will be dead. And it's not that the battery is defective, it's that it's reconditioning. So that's the caution with the yellow light. But you can interrupt that, and how you're going to do that is if you insert the battery into the charger and you see that yellow light, you can immediately remove it, put it back into the charger, and what will happen is that red light will turn to, that yellow light will turn to red. So in other words, it will go into the rapid charge mode. So yes, you can do that. We don't recommend that you do that all the time, because at some point you want to allow the charger to do the reconditioning. And I understand that your older chargers, the ones you're going to be using for the majority, will take care of the reconditioning, and it will top them off, so you don't have to worry about it.
We're going to condition the batteries at the line shop in a Motorola charger. The chargers and the rings are aftermarket. They will always keep the battery topped off. We're not going to let them go into that discharge mode. So we want to make sure everybody's got a full battery every time they go in there.
Okay? And then on the Motorola charger, if you see a flashing yellow light, so let's say you insert the battery into the charger, flashing yellow, that means that the battery is too hot or too cold. Most likely, day like today, it's too cold. So you're outside, you bring it in the charger, you put it in the charger, flashing yellow. It's not going to begin the rapid charge until it warms up, about room temperature. And last but not least, if you see alternating red and green, that means the battery has reached the end of its life cycle. It's time for a new battery. And these batteries should last, these Empress batteries, as long as you allow the chargers to do what they need to do. Motorola usually says they should last you 2 to 3 years. Okay? All right. Now, new terminology you're going to hear. Zone. Zone replaces the terminology system. And then you're going to hear talk group. A talk group and a channel is the same thing. And in your books it says a talk group is a collection of, you have a collection of 16 talk groups. I can tell you right now, on your fleet map, when you start to look at it, you have many more than 16. And you'll see that in a little bit when we go through that. You'll have, for fire, you'll have two variations. And so you're going to have one variation where you have lineups with arson and another lineup without arson. So those are basically the two fleet maps that will be programmed in the radios. We will get into how you navigate your way through the zones and the top groups when I get to the radio controls. And radios are also programmed with voice annunciation. So what that means, when you're navigating through your top groups, it announces what channel you're turning your radio to. So that should be helpful for you when you're going through them. And then last, there is no iCall on the new system. So if you've been used to using iCall, you will no longer have the ability to use that feature. This is an example of your fleet map that I mentioned, and I'll go over how to read it, and then Todd will tell you more about it. But if you read across the top, where you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on and so forth, that is your zone. And then over to the left, where you see 1, 2, the additional numbers to the far left, those are the channels. So the spreadsheet is showing you all of your zones and channels. It is color-coded. And what you're looking at here on paper or on this slide is basically what will be programmed in your radio. Okay, so.
So this channel lineup, if everybody wants to see this, it is on the bulletin board on the front page, and we can run through it, and everybody will notice right away. It looks very similar to what you're using right now on the Harris radio, with the exception is we've added a bunch of colors to it now. So if you see everything that we're using, tactical for fire, Fire 1, all our support groups are all in yellow. The reason they're yellow now is because we are now encrypted. On March 18th, we will go encrypted completely, so no one can monitor our incidents with scanners or anything else unless they are authorized to do so with an encryption key. We have added a few extra channels to our lineup. We have the Red Rock stuff for our detail. We have the helicopter P25 which is the medical helicopter. Some technical groups, which all start with F event, F tech, F admin. Anything F is fire designated. As we move across, of course, we still have the Red Northeast, all the interop channels that we always had. Then we get over here to column 9 is our agency interop. Right now we have always had our Englewood, Glendale, Arapahoe County. Now we've added South Metro, all their channels, and South Metro's dispatch. And as we get permissions from our agencies, we'll also be doing other agencies like Aurora, West Metro, Brighton, South Adams, that sort of thing. Those should be coming online in the next few months. We also have a new column called Event. There's 16 event channels clear and 16 event channels encrypted. We assume that's going to be something for a large citywide event, something like a DNC type event, where all agencies would need to be communicating on a certain set of groups.
Public Works gonna have that?
Public Works, I do not know. We'll have that. I do know Sheriff, Fire, EMS, Police will have it. Again, we still have the DIA channels. The DIA, even though they're part of Denver Fire, they are not yet encrypted. They're on a different system out there, so we will keep those channels in the clear. We do still have the fire, or sorry, not fire, but the police channels. Again, police are encrypted just like we are. And then off the end, we still have our radio-to-radio channels, and we also have repeater channels. And I know for anybody who's been kind of old school with repeaters, we used to have a repeater on most rigs. We, part of this project, are going to have repeaters in the rigs again. We haven't installed them yet, but they will be starting to install probably April, May. And we'll start with truck 16, and we'll roll that one down to Porter Hospital, as that's our worst building that we had coverage in. Start doing a little testing, but the repeaters will work. And the repeater is also going to be a digital repeater. So unlike in the past, we can send emergencies. We'll have clear voice on the repeater. We can still link the repeater channels to tactical channels. So I'll give a little demo on that at the end of this training.
Good question. Is there a budget for the health?
There is a legend for the color codes. It is on this main map, which is on the website. You just don't have it on, it's just not on there.
Thank you.
Okay, and the top display of your radio will change too, based upon what you're doing.
So the top display of the radio, every fire channel will show up in red. EMS channels are green. Police and interop channels are blue, silver / color. And then all other colors are amber on the top of the radio. So it is a good quick reference so you can kind of tell where you're at.
All right, so if you take a look at the radio, if you look at the top of the radio, what you see is you have an on and off and volume control knob here. And then you have this taller knob. This is how you're going to select your zones. That is numbered around there. You have your orange emergency button. To the right, depending on how you're holding the radio, but by the emergency button, there's a little LED, and we'll be talking about that LED and what that means. Notice you have an ABC switch. That ABC switch will not be programmed to do anything, so you will not be using that. Now, for the radios in this room, I want you to also notice there's this concentric switch where there's a white slash where you can move that to a circle or a circle with a slash. So if you turn it to the circle with the slash, you're locking your keypad. So what you're doing, you're locking these front keys and you're locking these two side keys here. All right? So that's handy so that you don't bump up against something and end up changing, say, a channel that you intended to be on.
That will also lock the channel button on the lapel mic,
Right.
not the zone button.
Okay, and I'll be showing you that button in just a second. So in other words, it's going to lock the buttons. It's not going to lock the knobs. That's a way of thinking of it. All right? All right, now, if you look at the side of the radio, you're going to find that you have a purple button. And again, the radio is programmed in this room. If you press and release the purple button, if you have the radio turned on, it's going to turn on your backlight. If you press and hold the purple button, it's going to flip your display. So if you want to try that, go ahead and turn your radio on. All right, now press and watch your top display and press and hold the purple button, and you're going to notice that it's going to flip. So that comes in handy depending upon how you're wearing your radio. Then, did yours do it? Yeah, okay. All right, so right below the purple button, you have your push to talk, and then these two buttons on the side of the radio is your channel up and your channel down. So this is one of a couple of ways to go through your channels. Channel up or channel down. Okay, if you look at the front of the radio, you have, or what I call the front, you have your main display. And notice with the radio on, if you look at the bottom of the main display, you have some menu items. Those menu items correspond to the 1 dot, the 2 dot, and the 3 dot buttons. That's how you select your menu items. Then you also have these navigation buttons, these arrow buttons that go left, right, up, or down. You have a home button. If you press and release the home button, it takes you back to your main menu, and we'll get to that. If you press and hold the home button, it takes you back to Fire 1. So let's say you've navigated on your radio to, let's say, Zone 5, Channel 3. I'm just making up something. If you press and hold the home button, it is a quick way to get to Fire 1. There is another way to select additional home buttons, and you'll see that as I get further into the training. The button with the laptop button is not programmed to do anything, so you will not be using that button. Then the keypad. You are not going to have the ability to dial telephone numbers or other radios. So for the most part, the keypad will serve no purpose for you. There's only one instance where you will use the keypad, and we will get to that when I get to that feature. Okay, now in terms of the speaker mic, I don't have one over here, but if you look at the picture, you're gonna notice that, okay, thank you. So again, you have a zone select knob at the top. You have an orange emergency button. You have a toggle switch that allows you to go either to high volume or low volume. And then on this, there are LEDs. And then on the side, you have your push to talk. And then this button right here on the side is a channel up. So far I've told you you can channel up using these two side buttons or this side button. And you can change your zones using this knob or this knob. I can tell you that using the knob, for example, on the speaker mic can be a little tricky. So let's say you have this on 5, and then you turn this to 1, all right? So whatever you selected first is where you are, all right? So you need to pay attention to that because we want to avoid you ending up someplace where you don't want to be in terms of the...
Whichever channel knob for the zones you select is the one that takes priority.
Yes. Okay. All right. And then last but not least, this has a light. You press and hold. You have a light. And then you press and hold it to turn that off. And you're going to see that this does come on when there's an emergency also. All right. Okay, now, let's go through how to select a zone. Are they saying they can't see me?
Yeah, it's telling me to move it.
I'm trying not to move. I'm trying to stay put. Okay. Now, in terms of how you select a channel, one way, as I already said, what did we say? We could channel up or channel down, right? Or we could use this. Or if you look at your menu, so if you turn your radio on and you look at your menus, above the 1 dot button, it says channel. Press and release that. Then you're going to see all your channels. So you can navigate or arrow up or down to find all of your channels. And once you get to the channel you want, you simply depress select. And then that is the channel that your radio is on. Everybody see that? So you can channel up or down, or you can go into your menu. Right? Okay? Same thing with zones. Notice you have a menu item that says zone. You can press and release zone, and then navigate until you get to the zone you want. And once you get to the zone you want, well, if you don't want to use this top knob, then you can channel up or down to get your channels. So in other words, you can use the buttons or you can use the menus to select your zones or your channels. Any questions on that? Talk to me.
On column 1 here in your zone, fire dispatch,
Mm-hmm.
you go 2 through 9 and 2 through 9 and 2 through 9. Correct?
Yes.
Why is that? When you have 24.
The reason we do that is we want to put enough channel space holders in the front of that radio. If we just had the top 6 districts, if you were down in another column and came across, it's going to jump you back up. So the whole point of the way we lay out our radio is you stay in the district that you are in as you channel across or zone across the radio. So that's why we do that. So we want to make sure that just the columns are long enough to keep you where you need to be in your district. When you go to run it.
Okay. Anybody drive a white pickup truck?
That's okay. All right, any other questions on your zones or your channels? Okay, now I'm going to show you something else. So what I would like is for all of you to pick a zone and a channel on your radio. Don't pick channel 1. Just take a risk and pick something. All right. So as you recall, I said that when you navigate away from fire 1, to get quickly back to fire 1, you would press and hold that home button, right? Did everybody see that? All right. Now, what I'd like for you to do is navigate away from fire 1 again. Okay, and then this time, I'd like for you to arrow over to the right until you see MS1 and MS2 on your display. Does everybody see that? Okay, so what we are going to do is we are going to save that zone and channel that you just picked to this button. So it's going to be like a shortcut button like on your radio in your car. So to do that, all you do is press and hold MS1, and you should hear a little beep if you have the tones on. Then, whenever you want to quickly get back to that channel, so now, press and hold home, go back to fire 1, then navigate back over to MS1, and press and release MS1, and it will take you quickly to that zone and then that channel that you saved. Now, if it didn't work, let me know. Okay. Okay. So you're on fire 1. So let's just do this. Okay. Right? Go over. Press and hold to your beat. Well, your beats are probably off. Now you know. Now go back over to the next one. Press and release. So you saved it this. Okay. Everybody got that? So, because what the discussion was is the fact that you're pressing and holding home and going always to fire 1, for some people that wasn't what was convenient. So now you have the ability to program some or save something on MS1 and MS2, maybe a zone and a channel that you're always having to go back and forth to. So it's like a shortcut. Any questions? All right. Okay. Now, your radios have the ability to scan. And based upon what I heard this morning, well, right now as it stands, there are no zones and channels programmed in your radio to scan. At least that was the initial plan. But now discussion has occurred that perhaps you're going to have maybe 2 or 3 programmed in there already, and then you can edit it to add more if you would like to. Did I say that correctly?
You did.
All right. So we're going to go through how to program your scan list. The radios have been set up to give you the ability to program 15 zones and channels to your scan list. And the instructions actually are on page 11 towards the bottom, but I'm going to step you through it. So if everybody will follow what I'm telling you, you shouldn't have any problem. So the first thing I'm going to ask you to do is press and release home. And the reason I'm asking you to do that is I'm just trying to get us all at the same menus. Then what I'd like for you to do is arrow over 1 time, and on your screen above the 2-dot button, you should see SCNL, which stands for scan list. Press and release that 2-dot button. Then what you should see on your screen above the 1-dot button is SEL. Above the 2-dot button, you should see DEL. And above the 3-dot button, you should see RCL, which stands for recall. So now, we are going to find something to scan. If you arrow to the right, you're going to see that you're changing zones. So go ahead and arrow to the right, and if you want to use your channel knob or your side buttons, you can do that. And once you find something that you want to add, go ahead and hit SEL. When you do that, a Z should pop up at the top of your screen. That is the system telling you you have added that channel to your scan list. Does everybody see the Z? We good? All right. Now, find another one. Arrow up or down, or left or right, and then hit select, and you should see the Z. All right? I'm going to do one more. Add one more. Hit select, and you should see the Z. Now, press and release recall, and each depression of recall, which is the RCL, you're going to see the blue bar jumping around. It is showing you what you have currently added to your scan list. And it just loops around. So I think we have 3 or 4 on our scan list right now. So it's just going to keep looping. So the recall is for you to check and see what you have added to your scan list. Then, if you decide, okay, now I want to delete something, press and release D-E-L, and notice that the Z goes away on your screen. Everybody good?
It also has a green LED on top of the radio that tells you that you are scanning that channel.
Right. Okay? Now, press and release home. So now what you have done is you have programmed your scan list, but your radio is not yet scanning. So in order to have your radio scan, notice on your menu you have something that says scan. Press and release scan. You'll see a Z on your screen. That means your radio is scanning. So now you have the ability on those days that you want your radio to scan, you can turn scan on. When you decide you don't want your radio to scan, press and release scan. The Z goes away and you have turned off scan. So the SCNL is to program the scan list. The scan is to turn scan on and off. What questions do you have? All right. Now I want to show you this, so bear with me here.
And
All right.
I want-
If you have scan empty, in other words, you don't have anything programmed in your scan list, you're going to hear this. Okay? So I recommend, it shouldn't be a problem if they're going to pre-program 3 in there, but if they don't do that, I recommend that you at least put your primary channel in your scan list. That way, if you accidentally turn it on, you won't have to hear that annoying sound.
I got the question from District 7 this morning. Brad Balding would like to scan a tactical channel, Fire 1, then he wanted to also scan the police, Englewood Police, and Glendale Police. We don't recommend that you go across systems. Since Glendale and Englewood are on a different system than our Denver system, the radio would have to unaffiliate itself from the Denver system, get on the Englewood and Glendale systems, scan those, then keep coming back. So it's a lot of overhead for the radio. So if you guys want to scan off the systems, like the Red Northeast, which you're not supposed to scan anyway, but anything like the Englewoods, Glendales, Sheridans, all that kind of stuff, scan it on your B radio and just scan those.
Okay.
Make sense?
All right. Any questions? You are making my job easy because. All right. Okay. Let's look at some of the other menu items that you have. So again, just so I can make sure we're all on the same page, press and release home. And then what I'd like you to do, what you see on your menu to the far right, it says STS above the 3 dots. Go ahead and press and release STS. That stands for status. Then go ahead and select a status. So you highlight it and then you hit SEL, which is the 1 dot button. Your radio should give you an acknowledge. And that way, whenever you key up, that is your status that's going to be displayed. And I think in terms of the statuses, you'll actually see them on the other on another page. But didn't you say there was a correction on some?
The local areas in the wrong spot on the one you have now will correct that. You'll also have status on both your portables.
Okay. All right. navigate or arrow over to the, if you are not out of status, go ahead and press home. And then arrow over until you see BATT for battery. It's a couple of presses. Press and release the button below battery. And this is showing you information about your battery. So what is showing? Mine says I have 90% charge. My REM capacity, remaining capacity, is showing as 2,893. The layman's explanation of that is I can charge this battery 2,893 more times before I need a new battery. But when I was speaking about the reconditioning, every time it reconditions, that number changes. Are you seeing dashes?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I did not mention this in the other classes, but what happens with that, because I forgot. But what happens with that is sometimes it takes another charge cycle for it to update the information, and then it'll fill in those numbers. Okay.
And we have to make sure we charge them in an Impress
And
charger.
an Empress charger,
Yeah.
right,
That's what came out of.
Right, but it's probably gonna go through a couple cycles.
yes. Okay, and then, so you've got the remaining capacity, and then it should tell you how many times has your battery been charged? What does it say? Sir?
Mine's dash.
Oh, even the number of charges?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, you've got to, your battery needs to go back on the charger for a while. Okay. All right. Press home to get out of that or exit, either way. Arrow over until you see INFO, info. And then arrow down to control map. This is more of a maintenance feature is what I've been telling everyone. But if you go down to control map and then hit select, it actually shows you what features are programmed on the buttons of your radio. So that's a nice to look at, but not really necessary. Press home to get out of that, and you got to hit home twice to get out of that. All right, then arrow over until you see CLCK for clock. Press and release the button below clock. Then press and release the button below edit. And you have 12-hour or 24 hours flashing. You're going to arrow up and down to change the information in the field. You're going to arrow to the right to get to the next field, and then arrow up and down to change the information in it for the time, and so on. To get to the month, day, and year, you arrow to the right. The clock does not automatically reset when the time changes, so you do have to manually change it. All right.
Fire tag. Fire
All right,
tag.
so I'm hearing all of this now,
Fire 1.
and so if you arrow over to until you see mute, press and release the button below mute. Then when I turn, notice now it's silent. So if you do not want to hear the voice annunciation or the tones when you're pressing the buttons, you can mute it. All right. Arrow over until you see BT for Bluetooth. Press and release the button below Bluetooth. And my status is off, but if I wanted to turn Bluetooth on, I could. Now, the radios, yes, they are Bluetooth capable. And you can use various Bluetooth devices, even non-Motorola devices. But I can't guarantee that any Bluetooth device that you purchase is going to work. It's kind of trial and error unless you're using a Motorola one. And Todd has a story to tell you.
So I've got a $200 pair of Jaybird stereo headsets that will not pair. Randy Wells has a $2 one he got off eBay that will pair. And I've also got a Motorola one, about $40, that paired just fine. Obviously, we're gonna, with this lapel mic, we're gonna lose the ability to use the earbuds. so we're gonna have to do something, so Bluetooth's probably gonna be the way to go. I don't know if operations is gonna handle picking something out for us and letting us get it, or how this is gonna go yet. But right now, we do have permission to pair Bluetooth to this for non-fire ground.
Okay, and then I've been telling everyone, if you decide you're not going to use a Bluetooth device, I recommend that you turn Bluetooth off, because it's one of the things that will drain your battery faster. Okay, press and release home. Okay, this time I'd like for you to navigate over to CHSR. That stands for channel search. You have tons of channels. You're not going to want to always navigate and try to find the channel that you want. So press and release the button below channel search. Then you're going to hit the pound sign or the number sign on your keypad. That's the only time you're going to use the keypad, and then that turns your keypad into alpha, and then you're going to spell out. So for example, if I was going to look for engineer, I would hit the 3 twice, get to the E, and then I would hit the 6 twice, and then that's all I'm going to do. And then I'm going to press and release search, which is the 1 dot button, and it puts me on that channel. It's a nice feature. Everybody get it? Okay. All right. Those are the menu items on your radio. Any questions? Then let's talk about emergency. So I'll explain it, and then Todd will set it off. So basically what happens is, when you press that emergency button, and you do have to hold it about 3 seconds, and that's intentional so there's not so many accidentals.
For how many seconds?
3. Did you just press yours?
No.
Oh, that was,
That was doing.
Somebody is.
yeah. Maybe it's one of the Skypers.
It is.
All right. Okay.
17.
All right. Okay, now notice I have, there's a 10-second hot mic when you press the button. And that immediately goes to dispatch. She knows there's red borders, there's beeping and everything. It does show what radio has the emergency. Dispatch will respond. By the way, the 10 seconds, at the end of the 10 seconds, you hear a little beep. And then that's your indication that you need to key up to talk. All right? Then once it's determined that the emergency is all clear, dispatch will clear it from their end, and then this is what is new. So you're hearing the hot mic, you're seeing the flashing light, all right? And then suddenly the hot mic, did you hear a little beep? All right. Now, to clear the emergency, so this is what's new. Yes, dispatch has to clear from their end, but the user that initiated the emergency must clear their radio. And you're going to clear your radio by pressing and holding this button until you hear a beep. Okay, if you forget to clear it, the next time you key up, it's going to send an emergency notification back to dispatch. They'll be able to tell because of how it comes in. They will they'll first make sure you don't have another situation, remind you to clear your radio. Also, worst thing you can do is, let's say you accidentally press the button, and then you panic, and then you start changing channels, thinking you're going to get rid of it. All you're doing is that dispatch is going to be jumping around their screen. They're going to have emergencies on every channel that you turn to. So you do not want to do that. Any questions? Okay. All right. And I don't know if you noticed when Todd set it off, you could tell. If you're on the same channel, you can actually tell who set off the emergency. You see their radio ID, which is the numeric number, but from what I learned, is there's a method to that, and if you understand the method, then you know whose radio it belongs to. And then that's not us, that's them. Okay. All right. Okay. Any questions? Okay. All right. This on page 15 is where it's showing you the statuses. We've already done that. Then tones. The new radio system may give you some tones that you may not be familiar with. So I'm going to show you the first one is this one. All right, so that means that you're out of range, but really that tone means no. So anytime you hear that tone when you key your radio, it means that your radio communication is going nowhere. All right? So it doesn't only come up if you're out of range. If you're trying to key up over someone that's already talking, you will hear that tone. Then, I know you've all heard this tone. Weak battery. All right? Talk permit. When you key your radio, that's the system saying go ahead. Everybody familiar with that? And then last but not least, busy signal. Now, on your radio system, you have so many talking pads. We call those voice channels. If there's a major situation going on in the city and everybody's trying to key their radios at exactly the same time, it is possible, not very probable, that you will hear a busy signal. If you hear a busy signal on the new system, the system is going to automatically put you in queue. You need to be ready. Do not continue to hold your push to talk. You're on the new system. Currently on your old system, you hold the push to talk. On this one, you do not. So, but you're ready. As soon as there is a voice channel available, the system will automatically give you the permit to talk tone, the chirp, and then you go ahead and key and make your communication. If you keep trying to key, you're putting yourself at the end of the line, therefore prolonging your ability to get out. Okay, so if you look at your display, there are symbols on your display, both on the top display as well as the front display. And those have meaning. So first of all, if you're looking at the slide where it says receiving and transmitting, those symbols are reversed. When you are transmitting, if you happen to be looking at your display, in the top left, you will see an antenna with red arrows pointing outward. And feel free to key up if you want to see that. Okay, when someone else is transmitting on that channel, you will see an antenna with green arrows pointing inward. If you look to the right of your display, you will see a battery indicator, which shows you how much charge you have on your battery. Then looking back to the left, top left, you see an antenna with the receive signal strip. And if you ever see an antenna with an R above it and the receive signal strength, that means you are roaming. You are in the roaming mode. And the example would be to Aurora or statewide. The Z we've already discussed. You saw that on your display. That means you have scan turned on. And on your radio's top left, you should see a circle with a slash and then the letters AES. That means you are on an encrypted channel or a secure channel. If you were to switch your radio to the direct mode, which is also called car-to-car or talk-around, in the middle, you will see two brackets with an arrow, which is an indication that you're bypassing the repeater. You're using your radio like a walkie-talkie. And then to the right, you see the GPS symbol. That, if it's flashing, that means it's searching for the GPS. If it's steady, it's locked. So yes, at some point you will have full GPS on your system. It is not going to be there at cutover. So you want to make sure that your users understand that if they, for example, press their emergency button right after you cut over, nobody's going to be able to find them because the GPS is not going to be installed until after cutover. And I don't believe Steve gave us a date, did he? No, he didn't. All right, but it is coming. And what it will give the ability to do is for dispatch to kind of see where you're located And if you haven't responded in a while, they'll have the ability to ping your radio, kind of figure out where you are, that kind of thing. But that is not there at the beginning. Okay, I mentioned that LED at the top of your radio. If you are transmitting, you have a red light as an indication that you're transmitting, a steady red light. If that red light is blinking, your battery is low. Double blinking, emergency mode, and rapidly blinking, the radio has failed to self-test. So what happens when you first turn your radio on, you get a red light, and then a green light, and then that light should go off. If it stays on rapidly blinking red, you need to contact Todd because the radio is having a problem. Solid yellow, you're probably not going to see too much unless you're on a conventional channel. Blinking yellow, you're on a secure talk group. And then solid green, when you first turn your radio on, as I said, you get the green light. Okay, now some things I want to point out to you to look out for. When you cut over to the new system, you're going to notice that when someone is talking on the radio, it's going to sound different than it sounds to you today. Digital does sound different than analog. Digital is digitized. Analog is closer to the human voice. You probably will notice that. So whereas today you can tell when your coworker's talking, you can identify who that is. On the first day or two of cutover, you might not be able to do that until you get used to it. Okay, so we can't really hear this that well in this room, but I'll play it. Okay, so that's analog. And then digital. So it's a little bit more grainy, but the great thing about your new system is that the communication is going to be clear. Your radios or the audio has been optimized on your system to give you the best quality, and I think you'll be happy with how it's going to sound. Okay, the other thing about digital is that digital, if you're traveling outside of the city, the further away you go, digital is going to fade, and then you're going to get to that point where you've just gone too far, and digital is just going to drop. Whereas analog, how it does, it gives you static, and with analog, the signals are either there or not there. So you're going to have it fade on digital. You should be aware of that. And also, if several of us are all in the room, if we were all to turn our radio up, let's say we were all on the same talk group, and we were to turn our radio up to a increased volume, you're going to get echo. So whereas analog gives you that squelch or that feedback, digital gives you echo. So those are just some differences on analog as opposed to digital. Okay, so that's an example of digital. All right, now, this is very important. So I'm going to talk to you about the sensitivity of the system in terms of how you speak into the radio. So if everybody will press and hold their home button and go back to Fire 1. Okay, and then I'm going to do a demonstration. So when you are speaking into these radios, and you can turn the volume up just a little, you want to hold it 1 to 2 inches from your mouth. You can speak on either side, it doesn't matter because there are microphones on both sides. Notice there's a difference if I hold it over here as opposed to if I have it right in front of my mouth. That is very important that users have to get used to. The same thing when you're using the shoulder mic. You can't have the mic here and be talking like this. you need to face the mic and speak directly into the mic. Otherwise, dispatch and other users are going to be complaining that they cannot hear you. So this means that habits need to change. Also, these radios have noise canceling built into them. When you are in a high noise area, you need to face the noise, and your voice will come through very clearly. Don't try to do this, because if you do this, you're blocking the noise canceling with your body. So you want to face the noise head on and speak clearly, and you'll be just fine. All right? Same thing with the mic. Face the noise. Don't try to cover it. There is a video that I've shared. It's called Loud and Clear. Very good video for any firefighter to watch. But the video was made a little while ago in our generation of radios before this one. They did not have noise canceling. So it gives you different scenarios with chainsaws and what have you, but it does say in the video to turn away from the noise. So I highly recommend the video, but just explain to people that where it's saying turn away, with these radios, you're going to face the noise. So any questions on that? Okay, then let's talk about potential failure modes. This system, your new system is redundant, meaning that there's backup to the backup. So a lot would have to happen for it to fail. But you do need to know as a user what to do should a failure occur. So there's two types of failures. The first one is called fail-soft. It means that you've lost connection with the brains of the system. If that happens on the display of your radio, in red, it is going to say fail-soft, and you will hear this tone. Now, what you need to know is that you will still be able to use your radio. Your radios are programmed to automatically switch over to a backup channel, so you'll still be able to use your radio, but you will not have the digital features. Question came up earlier, well, will I be able to use the emergency button? No, that's a digital feature. What you're going to be able to do is talk on the radio. That's pretty much it. I promise you, if fail-soft happens, Motorola and everybody else will be running around trying to figure out what's going on. Once it's back up and working, fail-soft goes off your screen and you're back to normal. The other potential failure is called site trunking. So you all know, I know all of you know, you have various repeater sites around town. Those sites, for the most part, are connected via microwave. If one of the microwave connections fails and you keyed up your radio, well, let me back up. I'm not explaining this quite right. When you turn your radio on, your radio affiliates with the closest repeater site to you. Then, so let's say you affiliated with what I'm going to call site B. And let's say that a microwave failed between A and B. Then when you key your radio, the system would just send you the opposite direction, and you wouldn't even know that there was a failure. But if the microwave failed between, let's say, A and B and B and C, then when you key your radio, that's site trunking. The only users that will hear you are those users that have affiliated on B. Nobody else on the system will hear you, including dispatch. So, dispatch will have an indicator on their consoles, I'm told, that if site trunking occurs, the little circle thing will turn red. They know it's in site trunking, and then they will go to the backup so that they can communicate with those users that are out there on an island by themselves. Again, your display will say site trunking, and as soon as everything's back up and working, that will go off of your display, and you'll be back to normal. Questions? Okay. All right, then we have one more thing for me to talk to you about, and that's RF safety. It is now a requirement that Motorola is to discuss RF energy exposure that you can potentially get from these radios and how to reduce it. So that's what this is all about. And we highly recommend that you do share this with your users. That way, everyone knows what the potential risks are and what you should and should not do. All right, so first of all, if anyone really presses you on this in terms of wanting more information than what you actually have, you can refer to them to fcc.gov or osha.gov. We want to control the exposure. So if you have any labels on any of the equipment, we recommend that you leave those intact. We recommend that you not transmit any more than 50% of the time. And when you are transmitting, you want to hold the radio in a vertical position in front of your face, at least 1 to 2 inches away, and from your nose and your lips. And the antenna should be kept away from your eyes when you are transmitting. If you are wearing the radio, do not wear it right up against your body. You need to have a holder or a holster to protect your body from the RF. And also, when you are transmitting, do not hold the antenna while you are transmitting. If you have damaged antennas, do not use those. They should be replaced because they can cause minor burns. And then also, it should be the recommended antennas and accessories. You want to use the radio at the lowest volume to do your job. Only turn it up when you need to turn it up, especially when you're using headsets, headphones, or earpieces, because that does limit the exposure. If you are not using a headset or a headphone, do not place the radio directly against your ear while you are transmitting. You have medical devices such as a pacemaker. You should consult the manufacturer to determine how to shield from RF energy. In terms of airbags, do not place a portable radio in an area of the vehicle where the airbag deploys. That can cause serious injury, and that actually happened not long ago. Someone had the radio in that area, it deployed, and the radio hit them in the eye, and they lost their eyesight. So be careful about that. Okay. Now, this last slide talks about intrinsically safe. Because you are the fire department, I have to talk about it. But there's a little bit of information that needs to be confirmed. So let me say it to you this way. How we usually train our users is that you're able to tell if your battery and your radio is intrinsically safe because your battery should have a white dot on the bottom. All right? And if it doesn't, it's not intrinsically safe, based upon how we were told. Then, on the side of the radio, there should be a white UL label. You have one? Or black, white or black. It's black and white. Anyway, a label on the side. Okay? If you do not have that label, again, the way we were told to advise our customers, then your radio is not intrinsically safe. You want a label on the side of the radio. You want a white dot on the battery. However, when your radios were ordered, your project manager, Steve, was advised that all of your radios were intrinsically safe. So because we are seeing so many radios for fire without the labels or without the dots on the batteries, he is in the process of confirming what was actually shipped to you. Because of course we want to make sure that you have intrinsically safe batteries and intrinsically safe radios. Any questions on that? Okay. You don't have any questions for me? Okay. Well, I do have an evaluation before you leave, but Todd is going to tell you about a few things, and then I'll pass out the evaluation that I need you to fill out, and you can just leave it on the middle of the table. Thank you.
What channels does the emergency button not work on?
Conventional channels,
So
radio to radio.
And does it work on repeated channels now?
It does. And we'll demo that right now.
It also doesn't work on outside agency channels.
Correct.
So if you're on Netcom and press the button, it's not gonna work.
Network first channels.
The previously known as Network First.
We'll have to see how that shakes out because we press.
If you're on our Network First channels, it works. If you're on DIA's Network First channels, which are also news radios, it does not work. If you're on Network First on the state system, it also doesn't work.
So MAC channels, it does not work.
On MAC channels, it won't work. But we did put in the interlock channels on the state system too, didn't we?
We did.
Yeah, so you've got the opportunity to go to all three of those
So-
channels. If you're not on our channels, it doesn't work.
So can we get a list so that we can definitively say to everybody, your emergency button will not work when it's not digitized, when it's on these channels, whatever.
We will add that
I mean, like, I know in the old radios, like, I know it was like the conventional channels, radio to radio and repeater, and it worked on everything else. So it's just good for guys to know that they're going to be able to transmit radio.
We'll add that to the channel lineup that we're putting on the website.
But it is exactly the same as it was, except for now we added a bunch more channels that also doesn't work on.
So I just think that's really important for
We
people.
have added the mobile repeater channel, so the repeater channels all have emergency now.
So we're gonna go over that real quick. With the mobile radio, I know there's been some concerns about the sound of the mobile radio. Sounds tinny, sounds real digital. We've optimized the audio, so when we reprogram on the 18th, we're hoping that's gonna sound a lot better to you guys. So that part will be done. We're also gonna show you the repeater. We're gonna start installing the repeaters probably April, May-ish, probably starting with truck 16. And I just want everybody to know that what at least the chiefs will get, possibly also the officers, will get the ability to activate the repeater from the portable radio. So you'll have a page button on your radio. You'll scroll down, you'll just pick which rig you'd like to turn the repeater on, and you'll hit your push to talk. That mobile radio in the rig is going to turn itself on. You'll get an indication on the radios that are on repeater channels that you're now on a repeater. And now I'm going to transmit to you on a repeat channel, and also I'm linked through the mobile radio in the rig to FTAC 8. So now it's out on the trunk as well. So if I test 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's digital mode. It's going to sound really clear, just like the trunk channels do. And if you get an emergency,
I'm on FTAC 8.
it will send the emergency on a repeated channel.
If I put on my repeater and then someone else on the same channel turns on their repeater, will they conflict like they used to?
What we're going to do in the districts, since all the districts have their own frequency pairs. So in your case, you would have truck 4, tower 1 would have the same frequencies. We're going to designate one of those as a primary. So if tower 1 is your primary repeater, but truck 4 rolls up and you start using that one, you'll use truck 4's repeater until tower 1 rolls up. It'll take over as the primary and shut the other one down.
So it knows, we don't have to do it
No.
again, it knows itself. Like
It's
it's a
automatic.
switch.
No more of that.
Automatically negotiate.
And
What if it's from two different districts, like say Tower 15, Tower 1 is the primaries?
totally different frequencies.
It won't matter.
It won't matter.
It won't matter.
So they're going to be on different frequencies. But if you wanted to use tower 15 and truck 4's repeaters, because you got a big building, so you got to stage both of them, you would operate on maybe repeater 4 on truck 4 or tower 4, repeater 2 on truck 4, and then at dispatch, they can patch your 2 tactical channels that are linked. TAC 4, TAC 2, then everybody's talking.
They have to manually do that.
They would have to do that. Unless you wanted to switch everybody to repeater 2 or 4, but you kind of kill the purpose by having 2 rigs on scene. So, like I said, that'll probably get installed here on truck 16, tested at border. We'll do some testing for a month or so, and then we'll start installing when we can.
We're also going to shake it down at the burn building.
Chief QI copy.
Other than that, see everybody on the 18th. We'll be out to swap your chargers and do the reprogram.
It's scary.
but that means you
I
set
want
up
it as my
as.
battery, not calibrated.
It's dat. We've run into that. He ran into it already, even though it got conditioned in an impress charger. Once it went into the Endura, it's kind of figured out a couple of times.
I'm
So
not
we're gonna get
impressed.
to pick their priorities.
Yeah,
That's what that means.
yeah, so Motorola it's a little different than the Heroes radios. We had like the 1, the 2, the 3.
Gentlemen, before you leave, if you'll fill out my form
Yeah,
for me,
these are
please.
it's kind of the same thing. So the way Motorola fits it is you have a priority 1, a priority 2, and everything else is not priority.
Right.
So, like for you guys, if you wanted to be on fire, if you wanted fire dispatch to be the channel that you can push the top, you talk on, just make sure that you select fire 1. Just make sure that you're.
Fire one,
So fire 1 is your priority one. That's the one you hit push the top, it's on the top. And out of audio coming in, it's always trumps any of that's priority one, because it's the channel that you select. So whatever channel, wherever you're at, you select fire 1, and then you then go to scan those. Add, but you really like 5B, you can add it as the secondary.
and that's what the yellow dot is.
That's the yellow.
Yellow dot is second.
Secondary.
Alright, so if you go back and turn scan on, if you grab the push, you're always gonna talk to fire 1. If anybody's, if nobody's talking about fire 1, if somebody talks on fire 1, that's gonna trump everything else in the list. And then they just come in as they come.
And then you have your secondary. So, okay, so that is something, because I've done a whole lot of classes.
Yeah, it's real similar with the Harris radio.
I didn't tell
Pretty
anybody
close.
though, so I guess.
Like on the Harris radios, you set all your priority channels you want to scan, and then whatever channel that you press scan on is your priority 1. So it's just a little different.
It's a little
It's
different,
basically the same.
but yeah, I never said press it the second time. So I don't know if you all wanna, okay,
And we fully expect to be, when we're in the firehouses, to be going over this stuff.
okay.
One more question. Ship commander just asked if I push the emergency button. How do I clear that? 10 seconds and then we're okay to talk on it? You'll have the open mic for 10 seconds and then I can talk. So I don't have to change the channel for a rest.
And if you want to clear it ahead of time, you press and hold the emergency button.
Anybody? Or
No,
just
the
the
person
person?
that
which-
initiated.
Originated.
So if the person that pushed it fell down and can't push it again, I can't do anything until after 10 seconds?
No.
Can I talk after that?
Yes.